I would hand over to Kemi. As I understand, you're doing the opening welcome, and we can then see if you want to wait another minute for people to come in, or when and how you want to get started. But a very warm welcome and a big thank you to our Nigeria chapter for contributing the session today.
Thank you, Ernst, and welcome everybody. I think that we will get started, but at least I will get started. If after that we want to wait, it's fine. Great. So I want to say good evening to everybody. Good evening to Nigeria, and good whatever AM or PM it is for the others in the audience who have come from different parts of the world. Welcome to the Nigerian session of the 9th Humanistic Management Conference. The theme for this year is Solutions to Human Challenges, the Imperative of Culture and Values. And the theme is really apt for the times we're in, and it gave us a lot of room for introspection at the Nigerian chapter. We thought about what a workable solution could be to the everyday problems we face, and we decided to approach it from the angle of the individual, thinking how could each person be the solution that he or she would like to see. How do we channel our energy to trying to make changes rather than complaining? And what role do our culture, what role do our values have to play? These are just a few of the kinds of questions that will be answered by our speakers today. We're very fortunate to get well-rounded speakers, diverse speakers from the medical field, from business field and academia. And they'll be looking at values and culture as a solution. And they will also be able to give practical examples of how we can be the change that we want to see. I know that they will do justice to the session, and I would really like to appeal to everyone to listen and to engage with the speakers when called upon to do so. I want to just remind everybody of a few ground rules for all this kind of sessions. Before I introduce the moderator, please ensure that your audio is muted, your mic, whenever you're not speaking. Put comments and questions in the chat window so that it can be read out during the Q&A session. And if you're in motion, you could just deactivate your video so that people don't get distracted. Please stay till the end of the session. It's going to be very interesting and it's going to be worthwhile. Our moderator for the event is an active member of the Humanistic Management Network Nigeria chapter. And in fact, she was our moderator last year. So we're happy to have her again. Eniton Ibironke, she's a lawyer by profession. She's a student trainer. She's a certified etiquette coach. She's a journalist. She's a brand strategist. She's a faculty member for Ishq Tolaram at their Skills Hub. And she's a mentor for WISCA, Women in Successful Careers. WISCA is a leading nonprofit for the personal and career advancement of women. She has been consulting also with CIFA.org as a media liaison officer on their migrant projects. So she has a lot of experience in consulting with educational institutions and has helped them to assemble school teams and to build their workforce. Please join me to welcome Eniton as our moderator for today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemi. And for me, it's once again both a pleasure and an honor to be hosting, to be moderating this conference once again this year. I'm excited and I'm quite thankful and privileged. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I trust that we're going to have a great time today, this evening. Well, in Nigeria, it's evening, and whatever time it is anywhere else in the world as you join in the program. Thank you. Hello. Okay, so I will be doing the introduction of the panelists, and then we're going to go into the first panel discourse, which is going to last for 20 minutes. Now, for our panelists, we have, like Dr. Kemi has said, We have quite some seasoned panelists that are coming, and we would like to say a big thank you to every panelist, every panel member who has agreed to do this with us today. We're happy to have you, and we thank you for your time and the honor of having you present doing this with us. So I'll go straight ahead, and I'm going to introduce them and tell you a little bit about them. Our panelist number one, in no particular order, is Rose Ogbechi, FCIB. Rose Ogbechi is a senior fellow of the Lagos Business School, Pan-Atlantic University, Lagos, Nigeria, where she teaches business ethics on the MBA and executive programs of the institution. She holds an MBA from IESE Business School, Barcelona, and a second master's degree in applied philosophy and ethics, MAPE, from Strathmore University in Nairobi, Kenya. Rose consults in the broad areas of business ethics and good management practices for organizations, SMEs, and NGOs. Her research interests are in quite a number of areas, and these include ethical values, good management practices that lead to sustainability and business success. She's also interested in corporate development and growth, employee loyalty and effectiveness, as well as how to institutionalize business ethics in private and public companies. And you can see why she's obviously one of the people that we thought would be a good match for today's conference. Our next panelist is Dr. Iyori James. Dr. Iyori A. James is a board certified general surgeon who is also certified by the American Society of Transplant Surgery in kidney and pancreas transplantation. She currently practices general and minimal invasive surgery in Charlotte, NC. She received her medical degree and Masters of Arts in Law and Diplomacy from Tufts University in Boston, Massachusetts. You know, one of those words that you have to kind of think very well as you pronounce it. Anyway, that was just to make us laugh a bit wherever we are. I know some people will be going through traffic, and then I want to. She was influenced to pursue a career in medicine from the experiences that she saw growing up in Nigeria. And for her, being able to make a positive difference in Nigeria is a long-term dream that she's now working towards. She's also a fellow of the American College of Surgeons. She's chair department of surgery at Novantel Mint Hill Medical Center, and she's the president of the Nigerian Physicians Advocacy Group and chairs the board of the Nigerian Diaspora Political Affairs Committee. Thank you, Dr. Iyori, for doing this with us. We also have Professor Ojebode. Ayobami Ojebode is a professor of applied communication in the Department of Communication and Language Arts, University of Ibadan, Nigeria. His research areas are community communication, community governance, new media, and political communication. His works have been published in reputable outlets in many countries. Professor Ojebode has been a visiting researcher, a visiting scholar, a keynote speaker, a consultant, a trainer, and or organizer in universities and research institutes in Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, the United Kingdoms, the Netherlands, Germany, Peru, and the United States. He has over 20 years of experience in multi-country research projects, higher education leadership, advanced policy engaged multi-method research training, and communication advocacy. Thank you, Professor Ojebode. We also have joining us today another interesting panelist by the name of Dr. Fatai Olajobi. Fatai Olajobi is an accredited trainer and management consultant. He is the CEO and performance change management consultant at New Neurons Concept, a change and health management consulting firm that focuses on performance and change management, as well as coaching for, that focuses on performance and change management coaching for career people. He sits on the boards of several organizations, among which are Sidolaf Health Initiative, Brainy Educare Services, the Outliers School, and Crest Care Foundation. He's a co-founder of the Outliers School and founder and president of Reviving Patriotic Values Initiative, otherwise known as RPVI. Dr. Olajobi is a member of faculty at Takidia Institute, USA, where he facilitates the e-learning of many MBA students for great career success. He also works with the management of Marital Medical Center, Surulere, as a deputy medical director, having served for almost a decade with the Lagos State Health Service Commission as a senior medical officer. Thank you so much, Dr. Fatai, for doing this with us today. And we have another person who's on our panel in the person of Professor Akinyeye. He's currently a lecturer at the University of Lagos, UNILAG, Nigeria. He designed and introduced the Masters in Diplomacy and Strategic Studies MDSS program into that department and the university. He has designed and taught different courses in warfare and diplomacy, international relations, and strategy. At different times, Professor Akinyeye has served as a consultant to UNESCO on its management of social transformation program for West Africa, the AU on boundary issues, and ECOWAS on issues of regional integration and poverty eradication seminar series. His current research projects explore factors in the regional integration of Western Europe and West Africa, insurgency and counter-insurgency in Nigeria, West Africa's involvement in the Second World War's air warfare, as well as a social history of postal services in Nigeria, amongst others. I am sure that you would agree with me, without any doubt, that we have gathered together a robust team of panelists, people who are coming with a lot of knowledge, wisdom, and a lot of, verve to handle today's panel session, which we are going to immediately. So I would like us to welcome them very, 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 very kindly. I mean, you can throw up your welcomes in the comment section. So at least we know that you're welcoming them, but then we're going right in. And we're going to have our first panel, which is going to be kicking off immediately right now. And the first two panelists are going to start the conversation. So thank you. So, and each panelist has 12 minutes and 5 minutes for wrap up after the Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'm the first panelist.
Oh yes. Oh, sorry, I was about to just call you on now, Dr. Gweche. Yes, you're welcome. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today to discuss this special topic, solutions to human challenges, values, and culture. This topic is quite important, especially because of the COVID-19 pandemic that has just happened and has had tremendous impact on organizations and on individuals. Please, can you hear me very well?
Yes, we can. Yes,
okay.
Please.
Many organizations are now reacting in different ways. Many are struggling to survive. Some of them are cutting corners, cutting qualities, not respecting the rights of people. We have retrenchments going on. They sack people as though they are just, sacking, throwing away ordinary things, forgetting that they are human beings. Because the pressure from the pandemic is very great. Moral values, I believe, will help us face some of these challenges that organizations have. The values drive the culture, our behavior drive the culture of the organization. And in the organizations, we have human beings. Employees are human beings. Customers are human beings. The shareholders are human beings. And our actions can impact on them. The actions of the organizations can have either positive or negative impact on the organization. So it's important that organizations recognize that they are dealing with human beings, because sometimes, because of pressure, they tend not to recognize that fact, that human beings are different from any other assets that we use in the workplace. because the human person has emotion and can react. It has also intellect. It can reason, can react to things. So organization, bosses, and managers must be very, very careful, no matter the pressure that we're going through. So I'm going to be talking about on 3 different values. These values are universal. The value of respect, fairness, acting with integrity. These values are also cultural, because in our culture, people respect people. Young people respect the elders respect the young. So it's a key value in our country, Nigeria. And then the issue of fairness as well, and even acting with integrity. I remember those days that people value their names. They do not want to do anything to tarnish their names. But right now, it's not exactly like that. And we feel that it's because we're beginning to lose some of these our values. Everyone deserves respect. Yet many organizations, as I teach in the class, I hear people tell me that they need to shout on their people in order to get them to perform. They need to shout at them, use abusive languages on them in order to make them effective, especially the low-level employees that do not have a voice, which is so sad. Everybody deserves to be respected, because when we do not respect our people, they lose their self-esteem. They are no longer as productive as they should be. So it's important that we recognize that respect is something very important. And sometimes we can ask ourselves, why is it that these bosses or employers lack respect? Is it that they just want to disrespect, or are there things that make them to behave that way? And some of the things I have found out are that these behaviors from managers tend to come as a result of pressure to maximize profits. So a lot of times they're focusing on maximizing profits. Their shareholders are putting a lot of pressure on them. So instead of promising the shareholders reasonable return, they're promising maximum return. And of course, that makes them to begin to display some of these unpleasant behaviors. Another thing I found out in my research is that they talk about accepting unrealistic deadlines. Sometimes because of survival, some of these organizations tend to accept unrealistic deadlines from their clients. Instead of coming up front to say, for example, I need 2 weeks to do this job. The client wants you to deliver in 1 week, but realistically, there's no way you're going to be able to deliver this job in a week's time. You accept this job, and then you put pressure on your people. This means that you make your people to work around the clock. When they work around the clock, it shows the lack of respect. These people are going to, at the end of the day, will transfer this aggression to their families. They are not there to pass the values to their own children, because when somebody is working around the clock all the time in the office, closing very late, they get home very late and they are tired. They are not able to see their children. They are not able to transfer the good values to their children. We find that this becomes like a kind of circle. So it's important that employers, one of the solutions is to try as much as possible to speak up, to plan. If you plan your work very well, you would know that you will need 2 weeks to do this job. That you need 2 weeks to complete this job. And you also must have courage to speak up, to say, for example, I cannot deliver this job within this period. Why am I saying that? Because if you accept this kind of impossible deadlines, it means that you're going to put the pressure on your people to deliver. And I've been in a class where people tell me that they don't care whether their people close work, leave the office at 10 p.m. or 12 p.m. To them, it doesn't matter. As far as they're concerned, the work has to be done. And even when I asked them, do you mean that this happens once in a while? I get to hear things like, it doesn't matter, it has to be every time, I don't care. So it appears to me that people have developed some funny behaviors. They are now, not sensitive to the needs of their people. And yet the human being is the greatest resource we have in the organization. So the solution to that would be to plan our work well, to try as much as possible to know how long it's going to take us to deliver this job, and then to speak up front. And then the issue of fairness in the organization, this is also a universal value, which is also peculiar to us also in Nigeria, which is also a cultural value, because in our culture, we want to be fair. And yet, in some organizations, you find that they use double standards to treat their people. So they pay unfair wages. I hear things like, oh, they accepted this way. For example, there was a case of somebody who was a general manager of a bank. He was given 80,000 allocation for the driver, but he was paying the driver 25,000 naira. In this day, in this Nigeria, is that a fair wage? No. And he didn't see anything wrong with that. He felt that that he was not supposed to use all the money and give to the driver. This is a general manager that earns so much money, and you are giving 80,000 allowance for your driver. You are paying your driver about a quarter of what was given to you. Is that a fair wage? Sometimes, even during appraisals, you also find that managers are unfair. They are not objective in appraising their people. And this then, what then tends to happen is that people, begin to lose their self-morale. They are not able to be effective on their jobs. And before you know it, they're fired. Why? Because they're not as effective as they should be. The solution to that would be that organizations need to have proper processes and procedures in place, so that people know exactly what they're supposed to do. And also they need to also have a channel whereby people can complain without putting their names there. So also have the issue of integrity, which is something that is happening now in many organizations. People are not acting with integrity. We have a lot of dishonest people, dishonest behaviors, and products are low quality products are being produced for the same price. They are cutting corners in order to maximize profits. This is also unfair, and you find out that sometimes they even mix. We have fake drugs and things like that. So they focus mainly on maximizing the profit as against adding value. And when organizations are not truthful in their behavior, what tends to happen is that people down the line will also follow. So culture must be driven by management. Management needs to lead by examples. Managers must lead by examples. There's no point of having code of ethics, having code of conduct, locking them up. But when the moment of truth comes, you do not do the right things. Because at the end of the day, people are watching us, our employees are watching us, they're looking at what we are doing, and we're giving them the examples they're going to follow. And they also carry these examples to their families. So these values are talked about: respect, acting with integrity, fairness, are universal values, which are also cultural in our place. And we look at companies that are doing well, for example, the Nestle's of this world, you find that they are consistent, whatever they do, in terms of the quality of their service, the quality of their products, and they value their people. They have this respect for everybody. They make everybody have this sense of belonging, and they try as much as possible also to help their suppliers by upscaling their skills, helping their suppliers, because they know if their suppliers supply them good products, they are going to have good products at the end of the day to deliver to their own customers. So the solution is that organizations need to sit back and reflect on the impact of their actions on the different stakeholders, and then to ask themselves, what do I need to do here? And then to look at the long-term gains as opposed to short-term gains, because most times people focus on the short-term gains they are going to be making, forgetting that these actions have long-term consequences. So our actions, therefore, should help the human being to flourish as against helping them to diminish. Because our actions, like I said earlier, can have either a positive impact on the human person or a negative impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And we can see that our actions, to summarize all that has been said by Rosubeche, that our actions can have a negative impact on the human being or not. And we are saying what she spoke to us about was very simple. The universality of certain moral values, practical examples of being humane in a corporate setting. And we are quite certain that she has done good justice to that. If you have comments, questions, your own view, or some things that you would like to add to what has been said, please just drop your comments in the comment section and we will get to it. Thank you very much for that, Rosa Bechin.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, yes. So we're going straight to our next panel speaker, who is Iyori James, MD. And you have 12 minutes as well. And you're telling us, how do we get in touch with our humanity in such a fast-paced world? The world is racing. And so it's over to you to talk to us in 12 minutes about how we're going to get in touch with our humanity in this fast-paced world that we're in. Thank you, Iyori James. Are you ready? So while Iyori James is coming up, we have a few comments that have come up already, and that says, so Benedict Wiggle said, thank you, Lady Ogbeche. This insensitivity of only focusing on overstretched targets, not minding the impact of the work pressure on the people and their family, has unfortunately become a norm in the workplace. And we hope that okay, so Iyori James wants you to unmute her and allow her to share her screen. What you, Lady Ogbeche, I'm talking to, so, okay, so that is it. Iyori James is ready and she's going to be coming on now. Thank you, Iyori.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to be here amongst you esteemed people. I never really knew what the term humanistic management meant. And so, when I was asked to speak, I had to sort of start doing some research to see exactly what you guys are about. But very, very, I think similarities even within the medicine field. So essentially I've entitled my talk here. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I've entitled my talk Maintaining Humanity During Challenging Times. And I'm a surgeon, so this is the perspective that I'm going to be speaking from. So we all know the simple definition. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines humanity as a compassionate, sympathetic, or generous behavior or disposition, a state of being humane. And the 21st century has seen a lot of great things happen. We've had advancement in technology, in science, in medicine, that has really allowed us to live better quality lives, although there are ethical considerations that have come into that, but that's not the reason for this talk today. There's increased global terrorism with rapid advancement on the African continent. On the medicine front, COVID-19 pandemic has really shown how, little bio microbes can cause significant destruction within an individual's life and great economies. We continue to see disruptions in traditional society norms, whether it's surrounding gender orientation, sexual orientation, that really are, breaking some traditional, that are putting stress on traditional systems. When we break this down in the Nigerian context, Nigeria remains a democratic nation, which is good for those of us who are, who lived through military years and all that. With technology, there's ease in communication, broader internet access. We're able to communicate in this conference from all over the world through, technology. There is domestic terrorism rising in Nigeria, Boko Haram, ISWAP, the bandits, kidnappers, everything originally from the north is coming down to the south. Again, from a medical standpoint, Ebola, we're able to contain that in Nigeria. COVID pandemic came, and just like with other great economies, Nigeria was hit hard as well with recession and the stress that comes with that. Then you had the NSARS movement. You've had this rising sentiment in secessionist group because people are really just fed up. So if you're listening to mainstream media a lot, trying to get current on Nigeria affairs, world affairs, it's no wonder that all of this can lead to a state of stress, challenge. And stress, in the acute phase is not bad. Our bodies produce hormones during stressful times to help us to help keep us safe, the fight or fear or flight response. But when you start having this chronic ongoing stressors, this can have significant long-term consequences, including emotional disorders where you're depressed, you get anxiety disorders, or even medical conditions such as high blood pressure, heart disease, and long-term sequelae from that. So in dealing with this, the question then is, which is the purpose of this session, is how does one maintain being humane in the setting of chronic challenges and chronic stressors? And I think that in order to think about this, in order to be humane, there are certain standards that we really have to ingrain in our consciousness. And, this is that, we must operate understanding that values humans above all. And the previous speaker alluded to some of this in terms of her discussion with how management can value their human resource, right, to keep the organization going. But most important too, you must operate understanding that all humans are one. So it doesn't matter what the socioeconomic class, it doesn't matter the gender, it doesn't matter the tone of the skin, it doesn't matter the language or whatever. We are really, in essence, all one race. And so this is really the idea behind remaining humane, even when there are chronic stressors or challenges going about. And I'll give an example, being a surgeon, being a medical professional, the Hippocratic Oath is sort of the standard, right? The first day you start medical school, you take the Hippocratic Oath. And the basic principle of this oath is primum non nocere, meaning first do no harm. And the idea here is that you are not going to intentionally cause pain, risk, or any undue consequences to another individual, regardless of who they are, because of what you do. So for example, as a surgeon, when I go into the operating room, I'm not going to, because of negligence or carelessness or inability, or not knowing what to do something that would bring harm to my patient, that would make my patient not go back to a better state of health, right? And so in all of the training, medical school, the housemanship, the residency, and all that, this idea is sort of ingrained that, okay, your decision making and the reason you spend the time and you sacrifice and you're studying the human condition is because eventually you don't want to be the one causing any undue negative effect on this other human being, right? So first, do no harm. And so what does that mean when we translate that to everyday life in Nigeria, made up of all this wonderful people of diverse ethnicity and language and socioeconomic class and skin tones and what have you? The principle first do no harm really is about training, because no one is really born knowing right or wrong, even though in our consciousness it might be there. But there is training that happens that enables you to think a certain way and so deliver a certain way, right? The training is important, the systems in place. So there has to be systems in place where people are able to manifest the training that they receive, right? And what does it take to actually build this? If you look at civilized nations that are doing well, or like the earlier speaker said, organizations who are doing well, right, is that there are human leaders within that organization that understands this value of human resource being the most valuable. And so they create an environment that enables that. So my challenge for you all on this forum, all the leaders on this forum, is what is your style and how do you incorporate that in your space? And your space could be, your office, it could be your home, it could be your social gatherings. How do you incorporate this principle of first, do no harm, meaning I will not do something, I will not cause risk or additional risk or trouble for my fellow human because of what I do. And so this is what we need to think about as we go out to our different organizations or a different space, like I said, it doesn't have to be in the office. It's wherever you are, really, in the club, at home, on the bus, I don't know, wherever you find yourself, that principle. And I think the more we think that way, right, that all human is of value and all humans are one, and that I will not do something that would bring about harm to the other person, then I think things really begin to change from a societal standpoint and just from general practice. And so really it's this principle that enables me to function as a surgeon, as a wife, as a mom, as a friend, or whatever you have, and really pushes me. There's this organization that I run, and I don't know if this is appropriate to share it, but I will share it anyways. And I apologize if it wasn't appropriate. But this is a group that I lead, is the Nigerian Physician Advocacy Group, and I'll just give you a minute to watch it. Hopefully this translates. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yuri. Are you done?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I thought you still had one or two things to say after your video. Thank you.
No,
I know.
I said thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, for me, it was quite succinct, to the point, as to what is it, the challenge that was thrown to every one of us listening, every one of us that will still see this, and to the leaders in the room. What is it that you would do? What would I do in my space to actually handle, be humane, and have people, and be able to create an opportunity for myself and other people to be able to survive in this fast-paced and challenging situations and circumstances that we find ourselves today in the world. And so our next panelist is right here. Sorry, 1 second. Our next panelist is Professor Akinyeye. Please, if I have mispronounced your name, sir, I would appreciate that you correct it. Our next panelist is Professor Akinyeye, and he's going to be talking to us. He's bringing it home to Nigeria. He's bringing it to the brass tacks, like this is it, the Nigerian/African culture and the promotion of its promotion of human values. How do we actually preserve those values and cultures within Africa, the African values and cultures we had, that actually enable humaneness and that can be of relevance in today's society, even though we know that the conversations around culture is diverse and can take many dimensions. But today we want to hear from him, and we would like to hear what he has to say to us about how we're going to take our African culture, our values, and how we're going to bring that to bear in today's society. And perhaps it would be good to see how that's going to help us. Thank you very much, Professor Akinyeye. The floor is yours to take over right now. Do let me know. Good, he's ready.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be part of this exercise. It's coming at a very timely period in human history when humanity, societies are disoriented, disarticulated. Well, culture, as you have noted, is a dynamic concept and phenomenon. What is culture? Culture has to do with the totality of the ways of life of our people, and it covers every facet of life. It's broadly divided into two, namely material and immaterial culture. Material cultures are those things you do which aid your everyday living, the things you produce to facilitate your everyday life, the house you dwell in, the equipment you use, the clothes you wear, the food you eat, and so on and so forth. All these are in the realm of material culture. Immaterial culture, on the other hand, has to do with ideas, your philosophy, your worldview, and your perception of reality. Sometimes there is a blurring of the line between material and immaterial culture, where you perceive an idea and then you materialize it by producing concrete materials that will aid your livelihood and everyday pattern of life. So every society has its own culture. It is learned. You are born into a society, and that society has its ways of doing things, the way of rearing children, the way of marrying, the way of working, the way of thinking, the way of eating, and so on and so forth. Over the years, culture is dynamic in that no society is autarkic or exists in isolation. Societies interact with other societies, they give up part of their culture and then imbibe part of other people's culture. In the African context, Africa has rules, regulations, ethos, mores, and values governing everyday existence. They have rules about marriage, rules about childbearing, rules about labor, rules about employing other people, rules about payment, and so on and so forth. All of these have evolved over the years. For example, if you exist in a society and you give birth, if you have to go to work, the issue of looking for a crèche or a daycare in the traditional African society, particularly the Nigerian or Yoruba society, does not arise because the child is a communal property. Every member of the society contributes to bringing up the child. In the same manner, if you are deprived, if you don't have money to eat, if you don't have a house to live, the society was communal in that everybody was his or her brother's or sister's keeper. You live with relations and they provide for you for your upkeep. If you have large amount of labor to do and you cannot do it, society has a way of rising up to this by group labor organization. It goes by various names. Airo in Yoruba, for example, Onweoru in Igbo, Aiki Gaya in Hausa, where people join hands, put resources together to tackle the labor at hand. And then if a woman is barren, for example, society organizes how to provide a child. If a man is incapable of procreation, society organizes how to make sure he has his generation to continue. And if somebody is sick, society has a way of providing. In other words, the typical African society of which Nigerian, Yoruba, and different Nigerian groups are part, was essentially communal. In other words, if you have a property of your own, it's only yours to a limited extent, and societal demands require, you are expected to give up part of this property. All of these went a long way to cater, for example, for unemployment, to cater for loss of livelihood, to cater for whatever maladjustment of whatever nature. Society has a way of adjusting to accommodate shortcomings, to accommodate deficiencies. Western societies that have been individualistic have one way or the other have a way of compensating for what African societies have. They have unemployment benefits in developed societies. They have, especially from the age of industrial revolution, they have workhouses where the destitute will go to reside. They have old people's home and so on and so forth. All these are modern equivalents of what the African society had in the traditional African society. It was a rarity, for example, to have elders taken to old people's home. People live in their society, but because the white society cannot provide for this, they have old people's home. And these are new and foreign concepts to the African mind, to the African society. To mitigate the effects of the imposition of Western or foreign culture and society on us, we have to look into the African culture to see how much we can borrow or we can take from the old African society and culture, which I have said has been dynamic, and marry with the situation we have found ourselves. For example, the loss of livelihood through the loss of jobs and employment is largely responsible for what the first speaker has spoken about: managers and employers of labor driving their workers to the bone. Society provided for this. You don't have to labor yourself to death if you are without job. If you are unemployed, for example, you had no food, you are a Yoruba, if you are passing through another person's farm, so the culture allowed you for you to feed yourself to your own brill, to your fullness, but don't take away from there. So how can we should look into how we can adopt this and adapt it for contemporary living. If you are without a house, you live with your relations. And so you are not desperate to look for a job at all costs where somebody will drive you to the bone and shorten your life and deprive you from being able to satisfy or perform other required cultural and societal values, such as having time for your children, for your wife, and so on and so forth. Society in the traditional or typical African setting made a provision for destitution, made a provision for lack of employment, made a provision for lack of residence and house. If anybody found himself or herself a destitute, all he or she had to do was to run to the residence of the ruler of that community. And then the ruler would take up the responsibility of catering for that person, in addition for whatever job or responsibility the ruler had for such a person. So in the context in which we have found ourselves, we should modify, we should see what we can borrow from this typical African society, modernize and modify for contemporary usage. The state, for example, should have residence for people who are homeless and who can go there, who will have some job being provided, at least to feed themselves. The society also can look into the issue of passing possessions. In the typical African culture, if you have a clothes you don't use, for example, younger relations, your children, and what have you will come and help themselves to this. So there should be a way of modernizing this, that, and I'm happy that in some churches and religious institutions, this is done. In my church, for example, there's what we call Benevolent Week, whereby you come with the materials you are not using in your own context, deposit it to the church, and then the church will arrange how this will get to members of the church who are needy, to mitigate the harsh effect of poverty on them. This can be arranged on a larger scale. The state can have a way of organizing this, of having a ministry for benevolence, where the well-to-do can donate or deposit materials that they are not used, and then those who are in need can go there, there will be a way of organizing and to get this across. I want to believe that if we are able to do all of this, the harshness of modern society will considerably be moderated, and the society will be the better for it. So culture holds a lot of key for contemporary problems, for a solution to contemporary problems. Sayings, philosophy, and religion within the African context have precepts for behavior, precepts for not cutting corners. For example, there is a saying among the Yoruba that Eniba Africana Kurilosan Ari Luru, meaning if you cut corner in your endeavor in daytime, somehow you pay for it at night. Kanako is a traditional device whereby physical distances are shortened by this device, but at night, whoever indulges in that will feel it in his or her body. So they have sayings about that. And then about the necessity of passing good behavior to succeeding generation. They also say if you are going to bury your father or your mother, for example, and you take your child along to bury the father or the mother naked, you are passing the message to the child that when I die, this is how I want you to bury me. So cultural precepts all have this direction and prescriptions of how society should rule, should move, and be organized. I think if we commission anthropological studies to look into these cultural precepts in the area of philosophy, in the area of production, in the area of labor, in the area of management, society will be much better than what it is today. And the solution will be more long-lasting. It won't be a quick fix of just giving pittance to people as happens in some societies. The African culture makes adequate provision for sustainable solutions to every problem in human society. So I think a lot can be benefited if we take a second look, a retrospective look at this culture in the light of the contemporary problems that we are finding ourselves. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Akinyeye. I believe that I almost believed that we would need to have like a full day for all our speakers, when they start and then they dissect, because there were such a lot of things that you were talking about, sir, that it almost seemed like, why don't we just create our own African society exclusive of anything else from the Western world? But, I do like the fact that there were a few things that you mentioned, and I'm sure that when we come back to the Q&A, when you're rounding off, you might be able to also address. And what I would like to say is that you actually balanced it out at the end when you were how you handled it. But I found one or two things interesting, and this is just me. This is just banter now about a man being incapable of reproduction in our African society, and how society had a way of preserving his generation, and that's very interesting to know. I mean, I remember that those kind of conversations are conversations that we probably would need to look at deeper and expatiate on, but at the same time, maybe looking at how does the African society and the culture of, a person is unemployed, but everybody pitches in, how does it really differ per se at the end of the day from what the West is trying to do? Maybe the balance is what we're looking at as we go. But like I said, Professor, you will definitely do some justice to that again, because I'm sure questions will come up when you are doing your roundup. And so our next panelist is another medical doctor, who in the person of Fatai Olajobi, and you have 12 minutes as well. Your topic and what you're going to discuss with us today, following what everyone has said, which has been quite interesting, is the role and responsibility of the individual in ensuring a better world. And I kind of like the fact that your conversation is coming on the heels of Prof's conversation, because then you can now begin to, merge, look at how, yes, our African values, that was quite a communal system, and how now the individualized system we're in, how are individuals now responsible as well for ensuring that we're living in a better world. What role would you say the family and community have to play in this? Thank you very much, Fatai Olajobi, Dr. Fatai Olajobi, as you take the floor and have your 12 minutes to talk to us. Are you ready? Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Dr. Yore. And thank you, Lady Ogbeche. We have had, so far, I'm sure that we're having quite an interesting time. And not just interesting, it's a call to introspection, for me at least. I don't know if other people are having that same reaction, but whatever way it is, I'm sure that we're picking things, we're asking questions, we're being challenged to preserve our humanity. Okay, yes, he is ready. Awesome. Thank you very much. Over to you. Have a great 12 minutes.
Okay. Yes, I greet all the panelists and listeners. Thank you for having me here. So I'll be talking about the role and responsibility of the individual in ensuring a better world. What role do the family and community have to play? Prof has done a lot of talking about what the community was or used to be. And you wonder what is happening now in the world. And then for us as a nation in Nigeria, I have noticed that we've lost our values to the extent that even as we know in the different tribes and ethnic groups, we value hard work. We see that people are not putting in what they're supposed to put in, and people are also demanding too much from what they're supposed to get. When you look at the economy also, we look at it from different perspectives. But I would want to say that as much as the community as part of it, the family also has its own component as the individuals. How should we look at this? Now, it is clear that looking at the biopsychosocial model of as we apply it to development, we would see that human beings have their most critical period at their childhood. And part of this childhood, from knowledge of neuroscience, the age 0 to 2 is very critical. And personality is formed by the age of 6 to 7. And you begin to see people acting the way they act because of what they've had as experiences in them. No doubt, we have the two sides of nature and nurture. Nature being the genetic composition of the individual in terms of morals, disposition, behavior, and all that, intelligence, and all anything you want to think about. And nurture is that part of it where the society influences it. We concentrate too much on the fact that the society has a part to play. I agree. We concentrate too much on the fact that the gene has a part to play. However, when we help the individual to grow up properly, we have a healthy individual. I'm sure some of us must have seen the movie of the Jungle Boy. It's a true life story. This boy grew up from being a baby in the jungle with animals. So he didn't learn language except the language of animals. He didn't learn behavior except the behaviors of animals, until he got an opportunity to be to get excited by a female. And he got to town and he had to be tutored. And so you see kids now behaving the way they've been allowed to behave. And you wonder, a 7-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old who can wear his own socks, who can take care of some basic things of his own. And then you shouldn't be surprised what will happen to that kind of child when it gets to the work environment. So here we'll move into parenting. We need to talk about parenting on a large scale. How can we help children grow up as healthy individuals? Well, you can't help individuals to grow up as healthy individuals if you don't have adults that are healthy individuals around them. So we keep recycling the same kind of people, and we keep complaining. For example, in Nigeria, people are too much focused on leadership. We don't focus on followership. Leaders were followers before they become leaders. And what they were doing, what they were used to doing when they follow us, is what they would do when they become leaders. If you want change, what you must do is to change yourself first. We concentrate too much on what others do wrong. We don't focus at all, almost at all, on what we need to do right. If we start doing what is right, and that is the part of the individual. So I need to work on myself. And that's why, for example, we started the Reviving Patriotic Values Initiative. I need to work on myself to become a better version of myself every day. As a family man, I work with my wife to make sure that we work on the kids to be healthy. Now I have some baggage as an individual. Knowledge of psychology, I have a baggage, or I have baggages as an individual. Growing up, I am not able to manage my voice well. And I'm getting better. I raise my voice easily when I get challenged or when I get angry. So much so that my third child, the girl, would tell me, even as a baby, when she was like 3 years old, tell me, "Oh, Daddy, you're raising your voice on me. You're raising your voice on me." That was when I started taming my voice. So we have issues as individuals that we must work on. We need to go through some kind of therapy. If a parent is not, doesn't get repaired, doesn't get therapy, he will not be able to help his own children. The same problem he believes he sees in society or he sees in himself is going to pass it on to those kids, because that is the way he behaves around them. And these children will grow up the same way and they'll pass it on. And that is why you see, go and check researches. It's been found out that single mothers are likely, daughters or girls that are brought up by single mothers are more likely to become single mothers themselves. Boys that were brought up by violent fathers are more likely to become violent themselves when they become fathers, because of what they see, even though they didn't like it growing up. They may not have liked it when they were growing up, but they see it and they get used to it. They didn't like it, but they will behave like that. So as parents, first and foremost, we need to repair ourselves before we can now look at our children. How can we raise these children to be healthy, so that when we are gone, we have a saner environment? In fact, when we are here still, when we are older, if we're able to bring up our children to be healthy, they are more likely to do what is good and healthy for the society, to the society. So we need to look at it's a we call it in chemistry, it's a two-way system. The reaction goes this way and this way. So the community influences the family in such a way that the family would work well to bring up the child. The individual also influences the family so that we have a better community. The individual can also directly influence the community. For example, I as an individual, what I do on a daily basis, apart from my job, is to join schools, because I've seen that adults are more difficult to tame. So I join schools around. In fact, for us as an organization, we have to adopt a school to see how we can influence them academically, emotionally, the teenagers there. And then we're getting some results. So what can I do without expecting? What we do most times is, all of us, most times is, for most people, they expect the society to do something. And that's why I say Nigeria is not good, for example. Nigeria is not good, it's not good, it's bad. You don't know that you can do something to help the community. So what value can I add as an individual? Well, there won't be a way for me to add value to the community as an individual if I don't add value to my life. So the way to start is look at myself, do a review of myself, and then continuously monitor and evaluation. Where am I now? What else can I do to make myself get better? How good am I going? And then what am I doing for others? A life that is that lacks selflessness is an empty life. And that is one thing I bring up, we are supposed to bring up our kids with. In our homes, in our schools, let's make it known. Let them understand that when you do something, Zig Ziglar said that if you want something fast from life, the easiest way to get what you want fast from life is to do good to as many people as possible. So how can we influence others? One way is get better, do good for people. we expect too much from people. And there was a particular class where a teacher was teaching, he used this phrase of Zig Ziglar, and he gave them 50 balloons, and he told the 50 people, each of the 50 people, give them one balloon each. He told them to write their names on it, write your name on it, blow the balloon and tie it. Then after some minutes, he told them to go to the next class and put their balloons there. They dropped their balloons there. 50 people dropped their balloons there. Then after like 30 minutes, he told them, all of you go and bring your balloons. After like 30 minutes, only about 5 people had found their balloons because everybody was doing for his own balloon. And then he called them back, told them about Zig Ziglar's statement again. If you can help as many people as possible to get what they want from life, you will be able to get what you want from life as fast as possible. And then they went there. Each person just picked any balloon. 50 people picked one balloon each. They looked at the balloon, called the name on the balloon, and they handed it over to the person that bought the name. I mean, the person with the name. And in 5 minutes, everybody got their balloon. So what can we do to help others? What can I do to grow myself to become a better person every day? And what can I do to help others? And this is what our focus should be, in helping the community, in helping the family. If you are able to be selfless, you know, intrinsic motivation is the fact that when you help others, you're happier and your happiness stays longer. Lastly is we must teach our kids to be resilient. They should look more at what they can give. Of course, there are times that you get tired, and you can get burnt out. So you need to surround yourself with people that can support, and that's where this community comes in again. When you surround yourself with the community that's always reminding you and strengthening you. You know, during the COVID period when we were locked down, we needed people around us, whether virtual or offline. And this helped us to keep going till things came back to normal or near normal, and then we were still sane. I would say that we need, again, in summary, I've said that community influences the family, that influences the individual, and the individual also influences the family and influences the community. The individual can also directly influence the community, and we need to look at how individuals can grow. One way to do that is we work more on individual, getting better every day, and being selfless. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. I hope this helps a lot.
Oh, most definitely, Dr. Olajobi. I am very sure that the challenge that and the inspiration that you have thrown from Zig Ziglar's phrase, if you want to get what you want, help as many people get what they want. And that part was resonating throughout for me. And you know, because I'd seen the balloon story, I'd seen the picture of you, and I'd also read it. And what you saying it once again just hit home about how much easier it is to just be able to build someone's bridge. And by building that person's bridge, you're building your own sort of. And then again, you really tied Prof's comment about the community and how the individual's responsibility comes in. And I'm just thankful, really glad that our lineup of speakers are doing justice to these conversations. And they're literally like going right after each other. Like one person's conversation finishes and the next person's own just comes in like it was pre-planned. And we couldn't have gotten this better. Thank you so much for that. We will get back to you again with comments and questions. Thank you to all our participants who have been actively following, dropping your comments, who have been very, very involved in this. We will definitely we'll read out all the comments very soon. So our last panelist for the day, who is going to take a very, how would I put it? A topic that when I saw the topic after listening to Dr. Olajobi, I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. And our last panelist is none other than Professor Ojebode, who has 12 minutes as well. And he's going to do justice to this very simple but very impactful topic of practical ways of actually being the change we want to see in the world. We have been challenged once again by Dr. Olajobi that, you know what, if you want to get something, help as many people as possible. But guess what? We are now going to hear practical ways of actually being that change, of being able to do what it is, being able to bring to bear what it is that we're talking about. And it's going to also expatiate and tell us what roles different stakeholders have to play. The government, the individual, organizations, and as many stakeholders as involved in making human life more humane. Remember that our topic today is very simple. Once again, what we are discussing today is solutions to human challenges, the imperative of culture and values. So do we have Professor, do we have Prof ready for us? So while we're waiting for Prof to connect, we will be looking at the comments that have come so far from the participants. Is Prof ready? You know, and so somebody has said, very succinctly put, Dr. Olajobi, well said. And these are interesting things. And, you know, somebody else here said, thanking Professor Akinyeye, that each one is work in progress indeed. Professor Ojebode, we are waiting. Yes. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Oh, great. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I've been trying to connect, but it says the host is not allowing me to connect. So I don't know why the host did not want me to connect.
The host wanted you to.
And it's a big privilege for me to be with you and be part of this conversation today. I'm very hopeful that at the end of this conversation, we will all go away richer. My focus, I've been asked to focus on practical ways of being the change we want to see in the world, and the role that individuals are expected to play in this process of being the change that we want. I think this is really very important. It's very central to the idea of solutions to human challenges, the role of culture and values. Because we're saying, well, yeah, so culture is a societal thing, definitely, but individuals make up the society. And if we are going to deploy culture to solve problems, we have got to take a look at the role that individuals can play as people who make up what a culture is. And I think this is very important because, you see, we are turning the searchlight on us. We are turning the searchlight on us. We are very good, especially in Nigeria, in turning the searchlight on other people. Everyone's complaints about what their neighbor is not doing well, or what the government is not doing well, or what the church is not doing well, or what the mosque is not doing well, or what anybody is not doing, what Man U is not doing well, it's always about what the other person and the other group and the other organization isn't doing well. It's hardly ever about what am I not doing well and what can I do better. And that's why I think the focus of Dr. Olajobi's presentation and mine is very crucial to the conversation that we're having here. I have a friend who's a politician. He's a member of the House of Representatives. And each time we talk, he always says the government has to do something about it. Government has to do something about it. One day I had to call him and say, look, we have three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. How can you be saying government should do something about it when you are government? This is the kind of the problem I'm talking about. The fact that we always think the role of doing something and turning the country around belongs to some other people outside of us. Talking about our values, one of the earlier speakers lamented that we have indeed lost our values, and I don't want to quarrel with that at all. It's very obvious. As Africans, we value hard work, we value integrity and honesty, we value service, which has to do with generosity and selflessness as well. Number 4, we value responsibility or responsible living. And among the Yoruba people, when they describe somebody as an omoluabi, that is exactly what they are talking about. This person is a bundle of all these different values, found personified. And I am telling you today, if you demonstrate hard work, people will call you mumu. Is it not true? If you demonstrate integrity and honesty, so you find money and you return it to the owner, a few people will clap for you. Others will say you have lost the opportunity to
Prof, we seem to have lost your audio. Prof. Okay, you're back.
Okay. Sorry, my network is acting up. So the point I was making is there is ample evidence to suggest that we have lost our values. And the focus of my presentation is supposed to be on what different stakeholders should do. Having listened to other presenters, my job is, I can say my job is neatly cut out for me. I have a number of suggestions that I think we should follow as individuals. First is that we need to understand the nature of human action. There are two things we need to understand about the nature of human action. The first is that each action of a human being is an investment that will yield interest. Whether the interest is positive or negative, there, however, depends on the nature of the action. If I understand that no action goes away without producing investment now or in future, maybe it will help me to be careful about what I do to other people. If I'm a manager, I'll be careful how I drive the people under me and how I treat them. If I'm a worker, it will influence my loyalty and commitment to the good of the organization. Each action should be seen as an investment that will yield a return somewhere, sometime later. The second thing about the nature of human action is that each action is self-reproducible. So if I do something evil, it may be one thing, but that thing is going to multiply itself. So I'm really joining people to increase the quantity of evil in the society. So before I do something to people, I need to ask myself if indeed I want this to be a standard way of behaving in society. So the first thing is we need to understand the nature of human action. Those two things about human action. Whose role is it to help us? This is where I think our religious organizations have a role to play. These are things at the level of morality, at the level of faith, at the level that transcends the physical. So our mosques and our churches need to hammer on the importance of understanding these two things about our actions as humans. I don't hear much of that in the church these days. I don't hear much of that in the mosque these days, about people going to reap the fruit of their action someday in future, right on earth. It's not a completely common thing that is being said. And I think we need to get back to that because it's very fundamental about our belief, even as Africans. The second thing is that as individuals, we cannot be the change we want by wishing it. We have to act. I listened to Dr. Yore's presentation and I watched that small video clip. I lost the audio. But that is one person trying to be the change he wishes to see in the world by helping other people. I think sometimes I'm consumed, I'm overwhelmed by my own needs. So I think I want to become a multi-millionaire before I can reach out to the next person across the street. It doesn't work that way. And so we have to have the culture of acting, of doing something with the little we have. And it doesn't always have to be money. The position you have, even as a messenger. You and I know that messengers are in fact more powerful, especially in the civil service, than even the directors. If the messenger says that you are not going to get that form submitted to his boss, you really are not going to get that form to the boss. Now, the messenger thinks, well, yeah, I'm a small man, what can I do? When I become a rich man, I'll help other people. But right in that small cubicle of a messenger, you can be the change that you want to see in the world by using your position to help other people. So acting on it, acting with whatever little we have is the good way to start. Number 3 is that we need to join networks. I have never heard the sound of one hand clapping. You can wave with one hand, but if you want this hand to make a sound, you have to join it with another hand or beat it on something or on a table or something. A hand does not clap by itself. We need to join networks. We need to join other people who are doing the same. It's pathetic that in our communities, in our places of work, there are organizations, there are neighborhood associations doing things. They are doing things about security, they are fixing electricity, transformers, but some of us are removed from all of that. We don't want to be part of that. We send our monthly contribution and we think that solves all the problems. You can't be the change you want as a lone ranger. Finally, I think we need to teach these values. And this is where I think the stakeholders here are individual parents, and Dr. Lajo talked about that. But there are also organizations, foundations that are teaching the values that we have been talking about. Integrity, hard work, generosity, responsible living. I am a consultant to an organization that takes a day, 2 hours or 3 hours every week to talk about values. I think this is something organizations and human managers can begin to also reproduce. Take a week to talk about kindness and let everybody in this big organization tell us how they can practice kindness from this moment on. So you see, when we discuss that this Monday, the rest of this week, everybody is going to be careful. How they shout on people, how they cheat people, how they maltreat people, they are going to be careful. So organizations should see themselves as promoters of these values. I've done 11 minutes and I'm just going to pause it here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Jebode, for actually timing that you've done 11 minutes. You know, this is really practical and doable. Thanks, Prof. That is from one of the participants. Thank you for the call to action indeed. And we can all agree that Professor Jebode has stated practical ways, like there's no doubt in it. And like we all know, 12 minutes is quite a short span of time to do justice to these topics, but I'm very glad that our panelists have taken that challenge, and in 12 minutes they've done amazing things to this topic that we have with us today. Fantastic points. Now, before we go into the next part of the conversation, I would just like to look at some highlights of comments that have come up from participants so far, but a lot of people have said thank you. There have been things around. So there might be one or two things that I just want to highlight or look at before going to the Q&A session. And so that's it. So far, so good. Please drop your comments, your observations, anything at all that you want to bring up with regards to the conversation that is ongoing. Drop them in the comment section and we'll definitely get to it. So now we're moving ahead quite speedily. And so far, so good. I'm sure that we have been enjoying everything that's going on. We're going to have questions and contributions from myself, the moderator, and the audience. So far, my comments are already ongoing. So, well, here we have here comments that says that, so there have been a lot of things. Professor Akinyeye actually said earlier on in his comments that the global economic situation has had a very negative impact on humanity. It has cheapened life, particularly in the global south. And he believes that this is why managers do not value and respect humanity. Economics, therefore, has a lot to do with the solution to this problem. And, in adding to Benedicta's comment, Chibueze says that the insensitive responses to our first panel speaker, Rosogbeche's comments, and the first from Rosogbeche, these were comments that came after what she had said. And Chibueze has said that this sensitivity is also coming from an economy-centered humanity. So we are realizing there's a common thread here, which is showing us that. And then when Professor Akinyeye spoke, he spoke about the fact that we're so focused on individually amassing our own wealth or comfort that we're not even looking at what it is that we can do for each other as a community. And I saw again, that Professor Ojebode took that same angle. And when he said, which we know, but which we sometimes need to be reminded of, a single hand cannot clap and make a sound. You know, even if you try to do, okay, my 5 fingers hitting my palms, you can't make that kind of resounding sound that which you hear now, your hands making together. So, I mean, joining networks, which is one of the reasons why we have the Humanistic Management Network here, you know, which is one of the reasons why we have this. And we're looking forward to being able to do bigger and better. And I'm very certain that next year, when we're not going to have this COVID restrictions anymore, we're going to probably have something even more great. But while that is ongoing, we would like to see your comments again. And then we have a comment here from Shege Etim. Sorry, please let me just use your first name. Shege, he says, thanks to all our panelists. Awesome discourse. I wish we could take the discourse to a wider audience so we can have a reorientation. And guess what? I'm going to answer that's your comment. And I'm going to tell you that, see, that wish, let's take it from a wish. You are one person who has a network. And each and every one of us individually have our networks. When we say networks, when Professor Jebode was talking about networks, we're not necessarily waiting till I join a society of international law and diplomacy, like, I mean, or HMN. You have family members, you have people that you work with, you have people that you do business with. That is already a network. And this kind of things, this reorientation, how do we take it there? Take it by your behavior, as was said by Dr. Fajobi. When he said, first Dr. Fatai, sorry, I added your first name and your last name together into one new name, Dr. Fatai Olajobi, when he said, you know, you be the change that you want to see. And when he said what he said about Ziegler's quotes, so people, please keep the comments rolling in, and then we'll have, so that we can come to a close. But then while we're doing that, we have literally come where we might have, if there are things that our panelists, any wrap-ups that our panelists want to, you know, say, or anything, last things that you want to reiterate in your conversations or responses to chats that you are already looking at, now would be a good time for us to kind of do that. So I would like to give each panelist, while we're waiting for any comments or contributions, maybe a minute or two to just add any extras that they might want to emphasize, to be able to push people, to motivate them, to challenge them, to give them practical ways that they can actually be humane and bring solutions to these human challenges that we're dealing with today. And also, I would like Professor Akinyeye to, you know, probably really help us again, 1 or 2 minutes. Our African values and cultures, those things are said. How, I mean, what ways, practical ways that we can actually bring them to bear again? Do we need to have reorientation sessions in schools? Do we need to have our values and cultures documented? You know, African culture was highly undocumented. Thank you very much, Dr. Ojebode. Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure having you, and we will definitely keep in touch with you. Okay, thank you. So he's hopping out. So, okay, yes, that's it in a nutshell. Any takers?
Well, you said I should reiterate some other aspects of my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what I want to say is we should take a hard look at our culture and see the area of, I'm happy that Professor Ojebode also emphasized that a hand cannot clap. The area of looking into the community and seeing us as one. See how you can bear the burden, how you can bear each other's burden. That will go a long way in restoring our humanity. Instead of the crèches, the daycares, let's see people, they are still full-time housewives. How can they come in to assist in the upbringing of neighbors' children? And then we belong to society, churches, clubs, and what have you. Let's open up to ourselves. What are your problems? And how can members of your network come to your assistance? And how can you come to the assistance of members of your network? By so doing, we'll be restoring our humanity and taking some of our cultural precepts for contemporary relevance and usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. I'm sure there might be other comments of views, but I was, when you said the part about the housewives and, you know, I find it that I like the idea that of our culture and the values, but I'm wondering, Prof, do you really think that in today's Nigeria, Africa as it is, with the economy as it is it really possible that we're going to be able to replicate those values of that time? Or should we look at a situation where I see a lot of innovation in young people now, where maybe they've not really been able to do it for culture, for economic reasons. You know, the culture of Ubuntu. So how about maybe we actually can set up some of these structures, not from family members alone, but how do we set them up? Maybe through the social enterprise methods. Because one problem I have when people come up with solutions, even the creches and co, is that everything is coming from an economic base. But imagine where our cultural values are now being preserved by people that are running it in a way that can create. So community, for instance, well, I think the primary problem with this is that communities we don't have communalization again. So in areas, if we look and say, coming together, what organizations, what people can come together and say, in these communities, how do you build a business model on a social enterprise platform that can give access to some values that are African and cultural? People don't have to pay too much, but the people that are working in those places are not paid less money. Those are just my random thoughts, Prof. And I'm sure that we can still take this up even more, because I kind of feel that today's world with the economy, a lot of women would rather do what you are saying. I believe so. Some would really want to be able to be the housewife who supports her family members' children, but economy may not be able to allow that.
Well, there are ways you can do that. You say economy may not allow that. People who are working, you identify those who are not working and who can be in a position to do this type of social service rather than full-time remuneration. You have a way of compensating them. When you are going to work, you come with the food of your children and all of that. And at festival period, at specific moments, there are way of the culture of giving, of buying gifts and exchanging, mutual exchange of gifts. This can go a long way in even keeping employed those who are otherwise unemployed. You control neighbors in a neighborhood. You identify maybe an old woman who is staying with a family or a full-time housewife, and you have a way of empowering her to, perform that role. That would be much better than the isolated creches where you bring people from far and near. People who know themselves within the vicinity can, effect a marriage between the old tradition of real family integration and then a good neighborhood. And you give just a token to keep such a person occupied and engaged, and you'll be surprised what will come out of it. The same
Thank you so much, Prof. Okay.
Right.
Please, sir, go on. I thought you had finished. Please go on, sir.
Same thing for the culture of employment or unemployment. There are ways you can identify people who are not engaged, who have some skills, and who can use this for communal benefit in societies. So rather than becoming area boys and what have you, they move down from house to house and see how they can avail the neighborhood their skill or their time. And everybody will find a way of compensating one way or the other. And that will be taking some people off the streets and also have the multiplier effect of providing security without having to fear.
Very true. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. I believe that the ideas that you have mentioned are things that we will all look into, and the purpose of the conversations like this is to enable us to expand our horizon and to begin to think of innovative ways to create solutions. So Dr. Iyori, I don't know if you're still on with us, and if you are, would you like to say some concluding remarks? Dr. Iyori, and we also have, okay, so I know that Professor Jebode has had to go for his next meeting, but we have, so the Professor Akinyeye has spoken. Lady Ogbeche, we would like to hear from you as well. Please unmute Dr. Iyori, and then we'd like to hear from Lady Ogbeche, and we would also like to hear from Dr. Fatai. And then we would ask Dr. Kemi to come in and conclude, and we'll have called it an evening of amazing, great, insightful conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I speak now?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. So very insightful conversations by everyone all around, and very insightful comments. I think that what the professor was alluding to is developing systems, right? So social networks, social systems. And as the world changes, right, it may not look exactly like what used to be, but the principle remains, right? So, for example, in a society where if somebody is unemployed, so I live in America, right? You can file for unemployment. People pay taxes towards that system, so that when you lose your job, you can file for employment to keep you through, and then you get a job and you move on. These are social systems, right? These are similar to what the professor is talking about on a grander scale as we move away from the way things used to be. And we have to move away because the world is advancing, technology is advancing, things are changing. The way I do surgery now is different from the way surgery was done 100 years ago, and it's better. So I think that when I hear him speak, that's what I'm hearing is, yes, keep those core principles the same, but perhaps there are more effective, efficient ways to deal with it as times are changing.
So we have Rosa Ogbeche. I saw that you were on already. Your contribution to this conversation, concluding.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I just want to say that we have to remember that individuals work in organizations, because my talk was centered on corporate organizations. Individuals work in organizations. We have to always think in terms of the impact of our actions on other people. So there has to be a reflection before we act. We should not just act, knowing that our actions can either bring out good somebody or bad. So our actions can either have a positive impact or a negative impact. So we must aim to have positive impact on people by our actions, and that calls for reflection. So we need to have a culture of contentment, being contented with what we have, because only when we are contented with what we have that we want to help other people, and then try to see how we can build others. Leaders must build others to climb up as they grow up the ladder as well. We have to have a culture of selflessness, because these days people are becoming so greedy. Everybody's thinking about themselves. I'm not thinking about the other people. And so our actions must always be for the common good. And I particularly like what Aristotle talked about, the cardinal virtues. He talked about temperance. People have to have some form of self-control. So even in chasing for money, looking for profits, you still have to have self-control. In eating, whatever you are doing, you also have to have courage to speak up. Courage to say, you know what, I'm not going to follow this way because other people are doing that. I must give voice to my values, and also to make prudent decisions. So to make prudent decision, meaning that you need to get all the facts before you make your decision, and look at both the short-term and long-term consequences of your actions. Why am I saying this? Because individuals work in organizations. Individuals are managers, individuals are owner managers, or CEOs in different organizations. So if we each begin to do the right things, it's going to have impacts on the organization, and then the impact on society as well. So I also think that organizations must endeavor to have code of ethics, and then have a good orientation when their people come, and put them through ethics training, and also perhaps even have ethics committee. I know that there are some companies that have ethics committee. So these committees are there to look at the ethical conduct of the individuals in the organization. I think it's something that organizations should try to do. And then, for example, in our school, every month we have a day we call Internal Issues Day. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the values of the organization. So each group will be having their meeting discussing the values. This means that everybody knows what the core values of the school is, the core values of the school are, and then everybody tries to live them. So we are not living them. You know exactly that you're not doing the right thing. So it creates room for people to know exactly what the organization stands for. So it's not enough to just have code of conduct. It's for it to be a continuous process of training and retraining people. Because if we're doing well in the organization, it's going to have impact on families, it's going to have impact on the society, and then it's going to have impact on the whole economy. So that's all I need to say at this point in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So we're going to have Dr. Fatai Olajobi, who's going to give his own concluding remarks in a minute. And I'm going to say thank you already to every single person who has participated, who has joined in. I know I'm going to try to run through your comments, and I'm going to hand over to Ernst, who's going to close this conference officially. And so, Dr. Olajobi, over to you. 1 minute, and then I run through the comments again. I saw a lot of interesting things, and then to Ernst. Thank you, Dr. Olajobi. Are you here?
Okay,
are you there?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Very quickly, we talked about community parenting. That's the term. In those days, while growing up, there was a day I shared with my kids that I was playing with my brother in my house at the backyard, and we were climbing on the fence. And the landlord of the next house saw us, and he called the two of us to his house, the next house, and he spanked us thoroughly. So I told my kids, and my kids were like, your neighbor called you to his house and beat you? What did your parents say? My parents did not even know, because I dare not tell my parents what that happened. My parents would beat me extra. That was community parenting, and that set us straight. And I think that we can still do some bits, no matter how small, in our little ways. We need to do reorientation. Also, about some of the things that Professor Akieli said, I think we need to make noise. We don't talk about it. For example, my first child could speak English well, was not able to speak Yoruba very poorly, until one day somebody challenged me. And I thought, wow, we're losing our culture. And these are part of the culture that helped people in the past, that can help us in our society. If we can look at that too, it's going to be of great benefit. And finally, is about the corporate culture. You see, business owners, business leaders don't realize that they need to train their staff for their staff's development. They only train their staff for them to be more impactful in bringing in more return on investment for the company. But we should focus more on helping individuals become a better person. If an individual becomes a better person in an organization and he wants to deliver, if he sees that when he does anything, it comes back to him. If he keeps doing well on his job, if he wants to get a better paying job, he's going to get it. And if he wants to get a raise, it's easy for you to bargain and get a better raise. To get a raise in the job you are doing. But we all get it wrong. We focus too much on ourselves. We don't focus on what other people can get, and so we lose it. Yeah, that's my parting.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for yet another nudge again in the direction we're going to go in. Thank you. I mean, I would want to once, you know, you can't thank people enough for their time as participants who actually honored this invitation and who are learning. And we would like to say a big thank you to the panelists for giving their time this evening and for sharing nuggets. And I would also like to say a big thank you to the entire Humanistic Management Network, you know, for us coming this far. And before I now hand over to Ents, I hope I have pronounced your name properly. I would just like to run through the very interesting comments that people put here. I'm sure that you would enjoy hearing them. And someone says here, look, I said, communal child rearing, such an interesting outlook. She totally doesn't get what people are talking about. Like, very, not that she doesn't get, but you know, it's for younger people or for people of a certain generation, 40 and below may not. Yes, we may understand, but some may not understand. Another person said, Kemi said, excellent idea, empower the people in your neighborhood. And these are responses to the various contributions that have come in so far. And then Shege says, yes, Prof. And this is talking about community parenting again. But we are so scared of relying on our neighbors. Our value system is changing and globalization isn't helping us, as some persons perceived to be unoccupied might just be working from home. And then we also have a comment from Chibuism saying that technology is creeping into families to train children. Instilling values is going to be a lot of work, and that work we are going to do. Because we are not, the reason why we're having this is saying we're looking at solutions. Solutions do not exist if there are no challenges. And so we're going to do the work that needs to be done. Dr. Fatai said something. He said the idea shouldn't be to identify those who seem not to be working. But for me, if I'm not working, to identify those that can help with their kids as my resources or time permits without being taken advantage of. Then Meg said, a culture of contentment, acting for the common good. Thanks for this insight. And I really like Meg's contribution, because Meg took it right back to the heart of you as an individual, realizing that your reaction to whatever it is depends on you and that culture of contentment. Okeme says, absolutely true. We need to move from self-centered thinking to people-centered thinking. That is how to move from success to significance. Wow, thank you. At Clinton, Benedict said, at Clinton, yes, might not be easy, and this is what I was getting at, but if we as parents personify our values, walk our talk, our children will be well formed. And Mercy said, my take here is that reorientation begins with oneself on one step at a time, opening oneself to contentment and opportunities, to creating a common ground for wow experience at every touch. We must have clear understanding of our values and our culture. The fear of the next person must be killed in order to give room for better engagement in development of self, others, and society. And I dare say, I would like to chip in at this point in time that emotional intelligence becomes important. Self-awareness and understanding of the other people. Let us not be naive. You know, let us also be wise enough to know where to actually gauge people, judge people, understand who they are, and know how you are now delving. So while you are dropping the fear, also add a little bit of wisdom to how you're engaging with people. Those are the little contributions. Thank you so much, everyone. Now I'm handing over to Ernst for the concluding part of this conference.
Well,
okay.
Thank you very much, Emitan, for this excellent moderation, and thank you to all the speakers and panelists and participants for being with us. I understand that you're on the same time zone as I am, so it's well past 8 o'clock, and it's been a long day. We started at 6 o'clock, 6:30 this morning in Japan, then moved to Austria, India, Switzerland, Bangladesh, Qatar, and now Nigeria. So we have a good part of the world covered on today's conference, and it's been incredibly enriching for me, and I hope you found it worth your time as well, the time that we could spend at this conference. So it is getting late, as I said, and therefore I won't keep you long. But just a few words that the conference is still going on tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll start off at 8:30 in the morning with our Chinese chapter, with the contribution from China, moving on to the UK, which I think is a very interesting framing they have around the role of community colleges. So not always only looking at the big global brands in business education, but also looking at what impact do the local community colleges make, and how can we support them in educating responsible leaders for the future. After that, we will have a fascinating, I'm sure, talk with the OECD on the type of policy advice they provide to global leaders regarding the new approaches to economic challenges. And lastly, closing the conference tomorrow will be your fellow African chapter, our colleagues from South Africa, who have got a superb panel together. And I know that you've been collaborating with them already from the Nigeria chapter, together with our friends from Zimbabwe. So I'm very excited and happy about having that strong finish tomorrow. And I hope to welcome and see many of you there tomorrow. And until then, have a great evening, have a good night. Thank you once again to everyone for being with us today, and bye-bye.